The Kings get a statement win. We discuss that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Kings fans, welcome to Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for making Locked On LA Kings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. I'm Eddie Garcia, your host of Locked On LA Kings. I've worked in sports media for the past 30 years, 20 plus years at the Fox Sports Radio Network. And I'm also host of the Puck Podcast, a weekly NHL review show that's been putting out content for the past 18 years, and a passionate LA Kings fan for over 30 years. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Well, happy Halloween, everyone. Sorry I'm not dressed up in any way if you're watching on YouTube. But the LA Kings definitely gave me and all of their fans a treat last night, posting the biggest win of the season. We've got all the details. But first, the setup. Kings were back in action for the second straight night after an embarrassing loss the night before in San Jose against the Sharks, a team that has the fewest points in the entire NHL. Kings back home to take on the top team in the Pacific Division, one of the top teams in the NHL, the Vegas Golden Knights. Not surprisingly, after that loss to San Jose, the Kings would make some lineup changes. And we'll start with the very top line. It was Anze Kopitar at center, of course, Adrian Kempe, one of the wingers, but Alex Turcotte promoted to the top line. The second line would have Kevin Fiala back from his one-game suspension. He and Trevor Moore will be the wingers. Philip Deneau was the center. Quinton Byfield moved back off the top line, off wing, down to the third line center position where he started the year, along with Alex Laferriere and Warren Foegele. I said on our show on Wednesday that the move for Q didn't seem to really be working. It hadn't sparked him in any way, moving back to wing from center, and it didn't really do much for that top line either. So ultimately, Quinton Byfield's going to be a center, and Jim Hiller deciding, you know what, it's not really working out. Let's put him back at center. And the fourth line had Trevor Lewis at center with Tanner Jeannot and Akil Thomas earning his second straight start. As for the defense, just one change. The top pairing was Mikey Anderson and Vladislav Gavrikov. The second pairing, Joel Edmondson and Brandt Clark. The third pairing would have Andreas Englund in for Caleb Jones, playing alongside Jordan Spence. Englund in to provide some physical play against a division rival, and he would, in fact, drop the gloves in that first period against Vegas. As for my big question, though, going into this game against the Vegas Golden Knights, and I said it on Wednesday's show, this was a statement game, in my opinion, for the LA Kings. Would they step up? Would they show some grit, show some heart? Would they play hard but smart? Would they execute better against one of the top teams in the NHL? Well, let's get to the game summary. In this one, the Kings get on the board first. Late in the opening period, Quinton Byfield made a length of the ice pass from his own goal line down to Warren Foegele at the Vegas blue line. Now, Foegele unfortunately couldn't handle the pass, but the Vegas goaltender Ilya Samsonov misplayed the puck. He kind of, instead of putting it into a corner or behind the net, he just kind of knocked it to the side, and Foegele got there and made a no-look spinning backhand shot on net, and Samsonov was moving. He wasn't ready for it. Great skill play by Warren Foegele, and the Kings had a 1-0 lead. Just seconds later, it would be Adrian Kempe skating into the Vegas zone. Alex Turcotte was right there with him. He kind of cut in front of Kempe on his way to the net, and right when he did that, Kempe let a wrist shot go, so Turcotte maybe providing a little bit of a screen. It was just kind of an awkward-looking situation, and it beat the goaltender, and the Kings had a 2-0 lead after the first period. Second period, more of the same from LA after an extended shift in the Vegas zone. Quinton Byfield made a cross-ice pass to defenseman Mikey Anderson. He made a nice pass into the high slot to Alex Laferriere, who scored on a wrist shot to make it 3-0 Kings. And just seconds later, Brandt Clark would take an Adrian Kempe pass off the boards, made a spinning highlight reel move around Vegas defenseman Alex Pietrangelo, drew the defense to him, and then made a beautiful pass to a wide-open Anze Kopitar, who was all alone at the back door. He taps it in, and it's 4-0 Kings, and the party was kind of on. at that point. Now, before the end of the period, former King Tanner Pearson did score for Vegas to make it 4-1. But in the third, the Kings would continue to pour it on. A power play goal from the LA Kings. Andre Kopitar with a beautiful backhand pass to Kevin Fiala, who made a toe drag move and put a nice wrist shot into the net. That made it 5-1 Kings. And just seconds later, Joel Edmondson, the defenseman, has turned into an offensive dynamo. Put a wrist shot on net from distance. It went between the legs of a Vegas defender and into the net. That made it 6-1 Kings. Now, the Golden Knights would score on a two-man advantage. They would tack on a late goal in garbage time, but too little too late. The Kings post a convincing 6-3 win, and I would even go so far as to say the score 6-3, that was closer than the game actually was. This was a dominant performance by the LA Kings. As far as the game stats in this one, the Kings with a 6-3 win. Shots on goal favored LA slightly, 27-26. Power play, LA was 1 for 1 in this one. Vegas was actually 1 for 3, so switch those numbers up if you're watching on YouTube. Apologies for that. Faceoffs were even, 28-28 apiece. The hits favored LA 27-21. Block shots favored LA 10-7. So, what is my big takeaway from this win over the Vegas Golden Knights? This is exactly what I hoped to see from the Kings. They played with passion. They played with attitude, responding to a bad loss with a great team effort. They were smart while being physical. They played great team defense. They got contributions from several different players in what was the best game of the year for the LA Kings. They stepped up to the challenge against the highest scoring team in the NHL and pretty much contained Vegas's offense the entire night. Also, the top team in their division they took on and handled easily. Well, I shouldn't say easily, but handled well. And they were clearly the better team on this night. Now, I had said the Kings had shown so far this season that they could beat the teams they were supposed to beat, but they didn't look like a team that could beat some of the top teams in the NHL. Well, for at least one night, the Kings absolutely looked like a team that could compete and beat some of the top teams in the NHL. They did it against the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, I mentioned that this game going into it didn't feel like a showdown between the top two teams in the division, but when it was all said and done, it was the Kings that looked like the top team of the Pacific and not the Vegas Golden Knights, at least for one night. I said that this was a statement game for the Kings, and I think they made a statement. They proved to themselves, they proved to their fans that when they play the right way, this LA Kings team can compete against the best teams in the league. Of course, consistency is the key. You can do it for one night, that's great, but can you do it over the long haul? Can you do it more times than not? That's obviously the challenge for the Kings going forward. But again, just for this one night, great effort by the LA Kings, and head coach Jim Hiller kept it short and sweet when saying, quote, "We had to have a response, and we did," end quote. And they absolutely had a great response to, again, worst loss of the year. They followed up with the best win of the season. So what was good for the LA Kings from a team standpoint? Well, obviously a lot, but specifically, it's been talked about. The Kings needed to stay out of the penalty box. Kings needed to have better special teams. Kings needed to have some of their top players score goals. Well, the Kings didn't take a penalty until the very end of the opening period. The Kings were not shorthanded at all in the second period. By the time they got into a little bit of penalty trouble, it was late in the game. Going down two men obviously is not something you want to do, but they already had a 6-1 lead at that time in the final period. LA scored a goal on their only power play opportunity. It didn't allow a power play goal until the third period, so special teams were better, I would say. The Kings got 6 goals from 6 different players, including 2 goals from top-line players and a goal from one of their second-line players. So they really checked all the boxes in this one. What was not so good? Well, not much. I mean, most of it was really good. Now, the Kings did allow some dangerous scoring chances early in the game, but goaltending was huge early on. We'll get more into that in a minute. Defensively, the Kings held the top line of Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, and Ivan Barbashev, one of the top Lions in the NHL to a combined 1 point. Mark Stone had 1 assist. That was it. So a lot of good for the LA Kings in this one. Again, a couple of chances early for Vegas in some dangerous areas, but Darcy Kemper stepped up and got the job done. Now, I will admit, I was very concerned about this game. Had the Kings followed up that bad game in San Jose with a lackluster, uninspired performance against Vegas, I would have had serious doubts about this team going forward. Now, it's still just 1 win, but a very, very big win for the LA Kings. A great performance and a great response to that ugly loss in San Jose. How did Kevin Fiala respond to being benched, and how did Alex Turcotte respond to his promotion of the top line? We'll talk about that and more on this edition of Locked On LA Kings. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. And of course, FanDuel is there for you to bet on college football. USC is a 2.5-point favorite at Washington, the over-under 55.5. UCLA is a 6.5-point underdog at Nebraska, over-under at 39.5. How about the NFL? Chargers are a 1.5 favorite in Cleveland against the Browns. Rams are also a 1.5 favorite on the road against Seattle. Join FanDuel, browse the latest betting odds, your favorite sports and teams on the Sportsbook app, and get in on the action. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Well, let's get into some of the individuals that shined for the LA Kings in the big win over Vegas, and there were a lot of them. 9 different players had at least 1 point. 5 players had multi-point nights for the LA Kings. I said the Kings needed their leaders to step up. Let's start at the top with the captain, Anze Kopitar. Big night for Kopi, leading the way literally with 3 points, a goal, and 2 assists. Darcy Kemper may have been a bit overshadowed because of the 6 goals scored, but his stellar play, including 2 huge saves in the opening period that could have changed the complexion of this game, were big. Kings never trailed in this game thanks to Kemper, who has looked better than expected, as far as I'm concerned, so far this season. I thought he'd be good. I didn't think, honestly, he'd be this good at this point. He's not just making the saves he's supposed to make. He's making stellar saves. He's making game-changing type saves. He's making top tier goaltender type saves, saves that make a difference. So I've been really encouraged by the start of Darcy Kemper. He had the bad game in Ottawa, and other than that, he's been very, very solid to very, very good. Kevin Fiala responded well to his benching the previous game. He had a nice power play goal, also a penalty-free game from Kevin Fiala. It's exactly what we're looking for from Kevin. Needs to be a positive, not a negative. Against Vegas was absolutely a positive. We did get some details on why he was suspended for the San Jose game. We knew that he had missed a team meeting, but Kevin confirmed after the game against Vegas that his alarm did not go off. It's happened to all of us. I know it's kind of a convenient excuse, but I take him at his word. He said, quote, "I take full responsibility. I have to be better than that. I felt terrible. I let my teammates down. So yes, of course, I had something to make up for," end quote. I thought Jim Hiller hit it on the nose when talking about Kevin Fiala and the situation, saying, quote, "There was nothing malicious about anything Kevin did. Kevin is a team guy. He wants the team to have success. Sometimes he has problems controlling his emotions and can take penalties, but it's nothing that he is doing purposefully that I understand. Kind of a freak thing that happened with him in San Jose. So there's nothing there. He came back. He's a good teammate. You want him to get out there and work, and he did. I was happy to see him rewarded with a couple of points," end quote. I think the part of that is exactly Kevin Fiala is sometimes he has problems controlling his emotions and can take penalties. It's nothing, he's feisty on the ice. And unfortunately, sometimes, that can be a very good thing. I think Adrian Kempe does a great job of channeling that feistiness and being competitive while not taking dumb penalties. Kevin needs to learn how to do that. Now, he's a veteran guy at this point. He's been around the block. You could argue if he was going to learn that by now, he would have done it. So we'll see. But all in all, I honestly think the whole situation with Kevin Fiala can turn into a positive. I think he felt bad about it. I think he understands the situation. I don't think Jim Hiller is going to hold it against him going forward. He responded in the right way. Jim Hiller did what he had to do, and Kevin Fiala responded in the right way. So I like I said, I'm not really concerned about this going forward. Yes, Kevin needs to do a better job of those bad penalties that he will take, some of those retaliatory penalties that he has a reputation. Players around the league know if they give him a little slash when the ref's not looking, a lot of times he'll respond. He needs to do a better job with that, but I thought he responded the right way. And I've said, look, Kevin Fiala hasn't had a great start to the season. All that being said, he's second on the team in goals with 5, fifth on the team in points with 8. So for not having a great start to the season, still contributing. So, and he had a pretty good game against Vegas. How about Brandt Clark? He had a less than great game against San Jose, had that embarrassing moment where he fell down at the point, led to a breakaway. Fortunately, San Jose didn't score. He followed up. I don't know if it was his worst game as a pro against San Jose, but it wasn't a great game. He followed it up with his best game as a professional, as an NHL player against the Vegas Golden Knights. We know he's talented. We know he's skilled. We know he's creative. And we know he can play with confidence. And I loved how he kind of shook off that San Jose game and played great against Vegas. Maybe it's too soon to say this game was kind of his coming out party, but a career high 3 assists, including the highlight reel pass to Anze Kopitar that was getting play all over the NHL. He's leading the team. Brandt Clark's leading the team in assists right now with 10. And right now, Brandt Clark's a point per game player. He's got 11 points in 11 games. So he should only get better as we go along, but a real nice glimpse of what Brandt Clark can be against the Vegas Golden Knights. Alex Laferriere scored again, now leading the team in goals with 6. I said on Wednesday's show that he's looking like this year's Trevor Moore. I thought that he could be a very good player. I thought he would be the breakout player for the Kings this season. I didn't know he would have this kind of production, and whether he can keep it going, obviously, is a big question mark. But I am fairly confident from what we're seeing from him. He could be a 30-goal scorer this year. Still a long way to go, but a great start by Alex Laferriere. And I've said it before, I love his attitude. Taken off the top line through no fault of his own. He didn't care, didn't change his game, hasn't slowed down his production one bit, didn't take that promotion and pout about it at all. He's been productive no matter where you put him in the lineup, and he's had a great start to the season, and it's been fun to watch. Alex Turcotte wasn't spectacular in this game for the LA Kings, but being promoted to the top line, he didn't look out of place. He brought that same energy that he has brought every shift that he's pretty much played this season. And it's been a great story so far for the LA Kings. Starting on the 4th line, we thought that's where he'd probably be most of the year. Nope, played so well, they had to promote him to the 3rd line, and now he's on the top line. So, again, Alex Turcotte, great to see him healthy, great to see him playing with energy and passion and bringing a spark to the LA Kings, and we'll see how long it lasts. I think he and Alex Laferriere, no matter where you're going to put those guys, they're going to bring it every night, and it's been great to see. And I also wanted to point out Adrian Kempe, a goal and an assist in the game against Vegas, and Juice played with some juice against Vegas. I talked about it a minute ago. I love when he plays with a bit of an edge, and he plays smart with that edge. But when he's physical, it kind of translates, I think, to the team a little bit. They feed off him a little bit, I think. And he's an underrated defensive player. But obviously what we need from Adrian Kempe more often than not is to be a factor offensively, and he was in the win over Vegas. Good stuff from a lot of players, obviously equals a good performance by the team and a favorable outcome. We certainly had that against the Vegas Golden Knights. Coming up, we have our 3 stars of the game, and where do the Kings go from here? That's next on Locked On LA Kings, your team every day. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. It is the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. All you do is pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Just go to the PrizePick app, make your picks right now, and you could be a winner. And you can now win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks with as little as 4 correct picks. PrizePicks is the best way to get in on all the sports action, including in places like California. Download the PrizePick app today. Use the code LOCKEDONNHL and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code LOCKEDONNHL on PrizePicks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. You don't even need to win to receive the $50 bonus. It's guaranteed. PrizePicks, run your game. All right, time for our 3 stars of the game. One of my favorite things to do because it means the Kings won. And there were a lot of different players you could pick for the 3 stars in this one. But I went with Darcy Kuemper as my number 3 star. Again, maybe a bit overshadowed because of all the offense that the Kings had in this one. But I thought he played a very solid game and, again, had some huge saves early in that game against the Vegas Golden Knights that really could have changed the complexion of the game. On the night, Darcy Kuemper would finish with 23 saves on 26 shots, but I thought he actually played better than that stat line might indicate. Again, not just making the saves he needs to make, but making some game-changing type saves in that game against Vegas. He's looked good this year. I got Brandt Clarke as my number 2 star with the 3 assists. Again, love seeing his creativity, love seeing his confidence, especially after coming back from that not-so-great game in San Jose. You got to have that mentality as a professional athlete. There's going to be times you're going to make mistakes, or maybe times where you even kind of embarrass yourself a little bit. But if you can just wipe it clean, move on, and go to the next game, that shows a lot of mental toughness. And I thought Brandt Clarke showed that. And then some, in addition to some great skills. But my number 1 star is Anze Kopitar, the captain, with a goal and 2 assists. And I didn't even mention, with those 2 assists, Anze Kopitar now has 800 career assists. Congratulations to the captain. That's an amazing milestone. Only 3 other active players in the NHL have 800 or more career assists: Sidney Crosby, Patrick Kane, and Evgeny Malkin. So great performance by those 3 guys. Great performance by the Kings all the way around in the win over the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, with that win, the Kings improved to 6-3-2 on the season. They're just 1 point back of Vegas for the top spot in the Pacific Division. Now, if there was one thing that I would point out to maybe throw a little bit of cold water on the Kings' big win, is the fact that for some reason, Vegas is unbeatable at home, but winless on the road. The Golden Knights so far this season, 7-0 in Vegas, 0-3-1 now on the road. Doesn't make a lot of sense, but they just don't seem to be the same team on the road as they are at home. Still, while Vegas may not have played up to their standard in the loss to LA, the game to me was more about how the Kings played, and they played very well. Now, will the Kings build off this win? I said it after the loss to the Sharks. There are a few games every year where you have a head-scratching loss against a bad team, and there's a few games every year where you kind of play over your heads and get a big win over a team that maybe is better than you. Was this win over Vegas one of those moments of greatness, or is this who the Kings can really be? The answer, in part, will come Saturday against the Blackhawks. Chicago is the second worst team in the Western Conference, in front of the Sharks. Only the Sharks are worse. The Kings cannot allow, or should not, be satisfied with that win over Vegas. It should be an encouraging message to the team about how good they can be when they play the right way, when they bring the energy, when they're aggressive, when they're hungry, when they're smart, when they execute. It shouldn't matter who the opponent is. The Kings need to play up to that standard night in and night out. Now, obviously, there are bigger games on the schedule, and Vegas is a big one like that. And the Blackhawks, you could argue, isn't. But again, if this is going to be a statement win for the Kings, which I think it can be, you got to build off it. You can't just be satisfied with it. You got to use it. It's got to be something that is a turning point in your season, and the Kings need to follow it up with a solid 3-period performance against Chicago. Maybe they're not going to score 6 goals. That's fine. But solid 3 periods of hockey, bring the intensity, be smart, stay out of the penalty box, execute the way you can execute, because there are some talented players on this team, and go forward from here. that's definitely the best thing they can do. Don't fall back into the old habits. Don't be satisfied with just one good game. Be encouraged that, again, when you play the right way, you can be one of the better teams in the NHL. Hopefully the Kings will do that. I did want to share with you quickly my experience at the Kings Golden Knights game. Now, I'm very fortunate to be a member of the NHL media, to have a media credential, and I can go to all the Kings games for free as I want to. But as you likely know, if you have listened or watched this show with any length of time, I am a Kings fan first and foremost. I was a Kings fan way before I did this show, and I will be a Kings fan after I stop doing this show, whenever that may be. And I'm never shy about that. I wear my Kings gear, if you watch on YouTube, for every show. So that's a part of who I am. I try my best not to be, not to look at the team as a fan, like, oh, they can do no wrong, blah, blah, blah. No. And I don't think most fans look at their teams that way, but I try to not let my passion, my fandom of the team, influence my opinions as best I can. But it also fuels my passion to want to do this show. So anyway, I make sure every year I go to a handful of Kings games as a fan. I still want to be a fan. You can't cheer in the press box. It's something that's looked down upon. If you do something like that, they'll kick you out, or they'll take your credential and kick you out. You're not supposed to do it. Be a professional. But I went to the game as a fan with my wife. It was Chargers night. My wife is a huge LA Chargers fan. We go to that game every year. There are Charger friends that she sees there, so on and so forth. Anyway, I had a blast. I had so much fun. Obviously, the Kings gave us so much to cheer about. I loved jumping up and screaming, "Hey, hey, hey!" and "Go Kings, go!" And it was so much fun. I really had a blast. So thank you, Kings, for giving me, in one of my games that I went to as a fan, a fun night. And of course, I'm sure, as you well know, and maybe you didn't even watch the Kings game, but the Dodgers were in the World Series. They won the World Series in Game 5, beating the New York Yankees. And the game was being showed on the Jumbotron in Crypto.com Arena while the game was going on. It was a very unique experience. Fortunately, in between the second and third period is when the Dodgers recorded the final out. Dieter Rule, who's the organist for both the Kings and the Dodgers, played "I Love LA." I don't know, 30,000 people or however many people are in the arena were on their feet cheering and having a good time. And it was a fun experience. It was like being in a giant sports bar. But that was a memorable experience, something as a fan I will never forget. Fun night in Los Angeles. Great, obviously, win for the Dodgers, and congrats to them for winning the World Series, and a great win for the LA Kings. That was a very, very fun night. Oh, by the way, I will be at the Kings Blackhawks games, not as a fan, but as a member of the media. Saturday afternoon game, 1 p.m. LA time, Saturday against the Blackhawks. And if you're going and you want to meet up and say hi, let me know. I'd love to do it. Send an email, reach out on social media. The game will be televised locally, and you can also listen to it on the 710 ESPN app. For you everydayers, those of you that listen to watch Locked On LA Kings every day, tomorrow is our weekly Kings fan feedback show. If you want to get in on that, you can send an email to lockedoneddie@gmail.com, EDDIE. And you can always leave your comments in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. We'd love for you to stay interactive with the show on social media, X, Twitter, Instagram, at Locked On LA Kings. I'm Eddie Garcia. Thank you, as always, for listening and watching this episode of Locked On LA Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Have a great rest of your day. We'll talk to you tomorrow. And as always, go Kings, go.